We're back, Mr. President. And tonight I understand the presiding officer and I will be sitting together at the State of the Union event, which I'm pleased to do, and it's always a historic and seminal moment in our legislative process when the President of the United States talks about and lays out his plans for the future. I know from watching this morning on television and from reading some of the accounts of what is thought to be said tonight, I don't know what's going to be said yet, but one of the overriding themes is going to be the theme of fairness. And I think that's an important thing for us to focus on in a second, particularly with regard to our spending, our debt, and our deficit. About what's really fair to the American people. And last night, I brought some notes. I did a telephone town hall meeting back to Georgia. And we had thousands of people listening on the call, and I was able to take 17 questions in the course of an hour. And one of the questions was from Fred in Barnesville, Georgia. Fred's a small business person. He asked this question. He said, "Senator, you were a small businessman. I'm a small businessman. We had to operate within a budget. Why is it the United States government doesn't have a budget?" And really, I think today is the 1,000th day we haven't been operating with a budget. That was a fair question. And so if you want to talk about fairness for a minute, my contribution to fairness is going to be what's fair to the American people, the American businessman, the American employer, the American employee. And let's think about it for a second. A budget is a guide by which you try to live under. It's an appropriation of your priorities for the future based on what you think you'll need to accomplish your goals. But if you're without a budget, then you have the tendency to do what America has done over the last 3 years, and that is exponentially increase its debt and its deficit. And what that has done is put a pall on the economy and a pall on the recovery. So I would suggest the fairest thing that we can do in Congress and the fairest thing the administration can do is to see to it that we have a budget submitted, that it come to the floor of the House and Senate, that it be adopted, and then more importantly, we change our pace around here and live within that budget. Now, I have some suggestions as how you do that, but first and foremost, I urge the White House to submit a budget this year. I understand from this morning's announcement that it will be delayed until February 13th. That's fine with me, but the quicker we get it to us, the better off we are. And then let the budget committees of the House and Senate act, and let us end up with a framework, not just for a year, but as the presiding officer knows, for 10 years, because we forecast out those budgets and those complications of those budgets for 10 years. But we have a broken system. We also have a broken will to do what's really most important for the American people when it comes to spending their money. And I want to suggest how we change our habits and become a fairer legislative body and a fairer governing body to the American people. Senator Jeanne Shaheen and I introduced a bill a year ago called the Biennial Budget. It amends the Budget Control Act of the United States of America and changes the way we do business. It portends that in the future, instead of appropriating and budgeting for 1 year, you'll do it in 2-year cycles. And you'll always do your appropriating and your budgeting in the odd-numbered year so that in the even-numbered year of re-election, you're doing oversight and fiscal accountability. I think everybody in this room will admit we make an effort at oversight to a certain extent, but practically speaking, not near the oversight the American people have to do. You know, it's ironic that our country, our people, our families, our retirees, our business folks, our employees, the last 4 years of recession, they've sat around their kitchen table for lots of times. They've reprioritized what they could afford and what they couldn't. They've reallocated their resources to take care of their family and their children, and they've been frugal and they've been conservative because they have to. They can't deficit spend. They can't borrow themselves into oblivion. They can't print the money, and they can't write the checks. Don't you think the government of the people that are having to do that ought to have to at least live under the same set of circumstances? We need for this room to become a big kitchen table, big enough for 100 people of goodwill to sit down together. We need a White House that will submit a budget that we can then argue about and set the priorities of this country. And try and put a governor on what we're spending. Try and put some type of accountability for where we're going. Try and forecast in the future what it is the American people can expect of all of us. So when tonight the President talks about fairness, I hope one of his quotes will be, "It's only fair to expect of me, the President, to submit a budget to the Congress, and it's only fair of me, the President, to expect the Congress to act on that budget." Because after all, everything else flows from that. And in the absence of budget responsibility, budget restrictions, budget projections, and a calculus for the future, we are spending without any governor or guide. It's like trying to drive from here to Alaska without a road map. I couldn't get there. I'd probably have a wreck. I'd probably run off the road. because you don't know where you're going and you don't know how you're getting there. Well, unfortunately, of all the institutions in America, there's only one that doesn't know where it's going and how it's getting there. And that happens to be the government of the United States of America. So my message today at this day of the State of the Union and this statement of fairness, let's be fair to the American people. Let's ask of ourselves what they're having to ask of themselves because of high deficits and high debt. Interest rates, those living on fixed incomes are seeing interest rates of 0.025%, almost negligible. Markets have been flat in terms of investments. Real estate values are down nationwide 33%. I saw last night in Tampa where the presidential debate was, it's 52%. The worst it got post-1929 was 31%. We have the most significant, serious financial crisis in the history of the United States of America, and it's impacting our families and our people. So let's ask of ourselves, let's ask of our president, what every American family has had to ask of itself. Sit around our kitchen table, budget and prioritize. And I would submit that Senator Shaheen and I have a roadmap that works for process. It says you do it in 2-year cycles, so you're committed to spending 1 year, and you're committed to savings, efficiency, accountability, and repealing out-of-date programs the other year. Wouldn't it be a great change in the body politic for you and for I to be campaigning in even-numbered years, talking about what we're looking to save and cut, rather than what we're going to do to bring home the bacon? I think the day of bacon coming home as reckoning is here, and it's time for the next bacon to be brought home, to be a sound budget and fiscal policy for the people of the United States of America. And I note the absence of a quorum.